This is Frederick Watts.
This is Jean Watts.
And
this is Love in 60 Seconds.
We have been married for over 20 years.
And in that time, we have learned a few things that we'd like to share with you.
So if you're single, newlyweds, or seasoned in marriage, we think you will enjoy the upcoming program.
Absolutely. And we want you to like, engage, share, and do all of those wonderful things that we do on Instagram, Facebook, and every other social media outlets. Send us DMs. We want to hear from you.
This is
Love
in 60 Seconds.
60 seconds. Love in 60.
Hey everybody, this is Frederick and Jean Watts, and this is Love in 60 Seconds. Today is Monday night. It is the 18th of May, and we are so excited to have you guys tune in this evening.
Absolutely. We have a great setup line for you tonight. We are answering some of the questions and addressing some of the issues that we have been DM'd and questioned about from our single audience and those that are looking to be married at some point. So we have a great lineup tonight. It's going to be fantastic.
Amen. This is part 2 of our relationship series called The Relationship Manual. And so we hope that you will enjoy it. We have some good content. We have a panel coming up. But right now we want to start off with something funny that we found on the internet. There's a comedian called John Chris, and he's talking about pickup lines for online dating. Enjoy, and we will be back for our panel right after this.
Christian pickup lines. There are a million of them. I was reading through the book of Numbers and I realized I didn't have yours. Would you like prayer because I'd like to lay my hands on you? Wow, that's not even... You should call the cops if someone says that. Also, this is like totally a prop. There's nothing written on it. I just didn't want people to think that I committed that pickup line to my memory. Anyway, what I'm trying to say is Christian pickup lines, there is a ton of them, but think about it. When it comes to Christian breakup lines, we got nothing. All we can say is, well, I don't know, God told me to break up with you. Oh, really, Vanessa? God told you to break up with me 2 weeks before prom? Well, he could have told me that before I rented this tux. I'm over it, clearly. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the first and I believe only Christian breakup lines. Hey, do you know Kirk Cameron? Because you're about to be left behind. All things work together for good, but we ain't together and this ain't good. If I'm the Bible, you're the book of Thomas. Not included. Wait, hold on. Thomas, is that one of the books? No, it's not one of the books. That's the joke. Why are we breaking up? Call me Matt Redman because I got 10,000 reasons. Honestly, great song though. My body is a temple and you ain't a member. Hey, are you an alcoholic beverage? Because I can't be seen with you. For I know the plans and you ain't a part of them. I think it's in the Message Bible. Here's the church, here's the steeple, open the doors, and we ain't together anymore. I'm going to a different church. Bye. Don't use that one. Hey, are you about to be wrongly accused? Because this is about to be our last supper. Hey, are you a river in Egypt? Because you in denial about this relationship. I just feel like Paul, you know, there's a constant thorn in my side, and I'm pretty sure it's you. Boom, roasted. I was reading through the book of Numbers and I realized I hadn't blocked yours yet. Wow, really? I have decided to unfollow you on Instagram. Hey, you want to go on a date this weekend? I was thinking about getting a campfire going. Kumbaya, this ain't gonna work anymore. If you're happy and you know it, clap your hands. You see me clapping my hands? No, because I'm not happy. Hey, real quick, are you mercy me? Because I can only imagine being satisfied in this relationship. Hey, did it hurt when you fell from heaven? Because you for sure got kicked out. Oh, snap. Can we FaceTime? Call me Peter, because you about to be denied 3 times. Are you a short-term mission trip? Because you're doing more harm than good. Take that one out. That one's probably too far. Scratch this one. I once was blind, but I'm about to see myself out of this relationship. Goodbye. Hey, real quick, are you the book of Revelation? Because this story's about to be over.
Hey everybody, once again, this is Frederick and Jean Watts, 1160 Seconds. And, we are so excited because for the first time ever, we have a panel of singles, and we're going to talk to you tonight about dating and relationships from their perspective. So we want to introduce our panel of some very dynamic, educated, single, great people, and we just want to introduce them. You want to go start?
Sure, we can start. We have, this lady is magnificent, and I feel honored that we have these people, but this lady is a CEO. She is, a philanthropist. She is just everything. She is a licensed minister within her or church organization. She is a creator of her own cosmetic line. She does so many things. She's an entrepreneur. She is a boss lady. She's a supervisor. She's a manager. She's all of that. And she's beautiful inside and out. None other than Elizabeth Richardson.
Hey, Liz, how are you tonight?
Hey guys.
Good to see you. Good to see you. And next, we also have representing the millennials, Mr. James Stallings. This young man, he is such a wonderful person. He's saved, single. He loves the Lord. He's an educator.
Yes.
He's a millennial, and he's going to give you some great perspectives on what it's like dating in his age group. We want to introduce Mr. James Stallings.
Woo!
How you doing?
More clapping, more clapping. Hey, James.
Yep. And finally,
we have, oh my gosh, author, principal, educator, just this super talented. She's a benevolent queen. This lady has done it all. She's seen it all. I mean, she is top notch, and she has so much wisdom and knowledge to share at such a young age, but she's able to share just generations of wisdom beyond her years. And again, she's beautiful inside and out, and it's an absolute honor to have Miss Rachel. Come on.
Come on. What's Rachel's last name?
I wanted to say.
What's your last name, Rachel?
It's Brooks now.
I know, because
I don't want to make no mistakes.
Right.
I don't want any mistakes, okay?
That's why I didn't say it. Because she's our divorcee,
That's
so
right.
she's representing the women that have been, or people that have been married, that are now single. So that is a very important group to represent, and that's a very important place to speak from, because you need a lot of knowledge, and she speaks some great experience, and she is so graceful in every phase of her life. I've known her for many years, and she's always been the same, and that's not easy when you've been through a divorce. It's just not an easy thing. So hats off to you, my dear sister, because
Well, thank you, ma'am.
that deal all the way.
So let's get in it. Let's get into it tonight. We appreciate you guys watching on Facebook. We want you guys to comment, like, love, share. We want to get you. We're looking at your comments. We'll be replying. Let's get right into it. Liz, what is it like dating right now in 2020? What is it like? What are you going?
Well, it's quiet right now. Everybody's in quarantine. It's quiet right now, but I would say, it's in 2020. I mean, this new time frame, I would say, for me, in my experience, has been not difficult to date, but very with the things that are happening in the world, it has been a very cautious journey for dating for me, because things are so different than what I know my sisters did when they dated before they got married, or people before me that dated. But now it's a more serious situation. You have to be careful in dating now, because sometimes you don't know what you're gonna get. If I can say it like that. What you thought was may not be.
Okay.
So it's a 2020 is a careful situation for me on my journey with dating, where I am in my life. I'm not too quick to just date anybody. It's got to be strategic, and it has to be well thought out. I'll say that.
So purposeful. You want purposeful dating, and it
Mm-hmm.
not just willy-nilly. It's not just having a good time, but you're dating with
Correct.
dating with
Yeah.
James, what is it like for you? What's happening out there for millennials and those that are not teeny boppers, not in high school or college, but are mature adults, got real jobs. But what's going on in your world for dating?
So, to be honest, I don't think dating is too difficult in 2020. But dating with a purpose, like, is extremely difficult. I know a lot of people assume that because you're a younger man and all that stuff, your intentions may not be the same as someone else's. But when you have a certain mentality to get married, it's a little bit different. A lot of people don't really respect it or understand it.
I Let me ask you this. So, James, when you're dating, you sort of mentioned before when we were talking, where do you find people that you're interested in? Is it mostly at church? Is it where you work? Is it on social media? Or how do you make the contact?
Yeah, it's definitely not where I work. But
Oh, you just broke some girl heart at your job. Okay.
no, I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that. Probably social media and probably like the main two places. Just to find somebody to talk to and communicate with, at least for me, has been the easiest thing for me. Church.
Awesome.
Okay. All right. Well, our next question would be for Rachel. So, Rachel, for someone who has been married, who has children, and now re-entering that dating world, because it was, I'm sure, different when you were dating before you got married, and then now it's a whole nother monster. Tell us about what that experience is like right now.
Well, it's difficult, right? Because as I stated previously, at this age now, I know exactly what I want. I know exactly what I don't want. And considering I have been married and single before that, the men are different in 2020. The women are different in 2020. And so, and I always make, crack jokes about, me being older and, me being out of the game. This dating scene is so just so fictitious and just so fake and just so overwhelming. It's like, okay, I just, maybe somebody will just knock on my door and just say, I want to date you. Because going, somewhere to find a potential mate or anything like that has just been so difficult. And so, but one thing about me, I get irritable very fast because my, I guess, nonsense level is different. And that's the thing now. My level of
Patience,
tolerance,
okay.
level of tolerance is just totally different, and my patience. And so I don't want to be picky. I don't want to be this, because the men that I've encountered have said many of things about me, right? And so I don't want to be hard. I don't want to be so selective that I lose out, and this is cliche, you're going to lose out on a good thing, but that is true. I don't want to lose out on a good man being so selective, right?
Sure.
And so I'm mindful of that, but I'm also mindful that every man and woman have their issues.
Yes.
And that's something that I have learned not only in these last 3.5, 4 years I've been divorced, but even before that, I've learned that everybody have issues. It's just the issues, what issues I want to deal with.
Right.
Very true.
So,
Very true.
and so with that, it's just been very difficult. But I said this, and I say this jokingly. I mean, I'm actually serious, but I say it jokingly. But every time I go to Home Depot, I see potential, single men. So I think that's my go-to spot. And so, but online dating has been scary for me. I've never done it. And so it's new because when I was dating, we didn't have online dating.
Okay, well, let me stop you right there. So what does, I don't know, I know James mentioned that, he does speak to people on social media, so that is online, you know what I'm saying? That's,
Right.
sliding into the DMs, you know what I'm saying? That's online. How do you, and anybody could chime in, how do you feel about online dating? Is that something that is acceptable? I know all of you all are of the Christian faith, and we're getting ready to have someone else to come in, join. And this gentleman is married, so he's going to kind of give it a take from, you know, a married perspective on what he feels like that world is, because he's a minister. But we're going to bring him in just a few minutes. But what do you feel like, you know, is that acceptable? Is that an acceptable way in 2020 to meet someone? I'll tell you what my take is after I hear from you guys.
I think me personally, I've actually, I'm gonna be honest. There was a time I was embarrassed, and embarrassed that it seemed like it was desperation, and I'm just being honest. Like, you know, if I'm online looking for a guy, to me it just seemed like I was desperate. However,
but is it that you were busy because you are a professional? You got stuff to do. Life is way busier now than it was back then. Is it that just people are busy?
Right. And so that was my thoughts prior to now. So now I think, and now meaning in the last 6 months perhaps, that I think it's okay. Definitely with everyone in the house with the corona, but I just thought I had a different perspective 6 months prior to now, right? So, but I have not been on any of the dating sites, but do I have men to come into on my Instagram and come into the DM? Absolutely. Have I had conversations from those messages? Absolutely. Do I think it's okay? Absolutely.
All right.
So that's kind of where I am now.
Somebody else. Who else? Liz.
So for me, I've had an experience with online dating, and I was very nervous about it. My girlfriends, bless their hearts, got me to do it. They we had a very serious conversation about it. It wasn't I dare you, because they know I don't do the dare stuff, but it was a very serious, grounded conversation that we explored. And a couple of them had experienced online dating and had met their husbands, their mates, that way, and they were successful. And I was a little leery about it. I tried it out, and my experiences, I did it maybe twice, but my first experience was a bust. But it comes along with the territory. It was a bust. I had gotten myself geeked up, Jean, and said, okay, all right, I'm gonna try this. And had, really, because of the nervousness that I had with it, because it was so, you're dating someone off of a picture, a bio, and a study. You have a secure. I was on a very secure site. I won't say the site, but it was a very secure site, and we researched the site for a while before I even thought about doing anything on there with regards to seeing what it was about. But it was a very secure site, and for me, I was okay with that, but still had some parameters. My girlfriends followed me on the first date, and they camped outside of the venue, but it was a bust. But I would say, for me, the experience was different. And my takeaway from my experience with the online dating, I don't do the online dating anymore. I wouldn't say I wouldn't do it again, because it wasn't, although the first experience wasn't that, we weren't compatible or anything like that, the overall, I would say, idea of it was not that bad. I mean, my thought would be a little, like Rachel said earlier, your initial thing is, I'm a Christian girl. It could be embarrassing. It could be, take for someone saying that person is desperate. Well, I'm not a desperate person. If I was desperate, I could have been married a long time ago, or dating, or, doing something a long time ago. It's not about desperation. I guess after I tried it, Rachel, I'll say that. So at first, yes, my little thoughts were, are people going to think she's desperate? Are people going to say, this is just not the way she's supposed to do this? But, at the end of the day, I'm an adult, and I was very cautious, you know, had my way. But my thinking is, I think that it works for some people. I think that it could be an avenue where some people could potentially find their soulmate. There were some very good guys on there that were scared, just like me. They had the same fears, just like me. And I was like, wow. I mean, you have people out here that don't know where to go to find Christian people or other people of the like. They're a little intimidated sometimes. And so there were other people out there really taking a risk and saying, you know, I don't want nobody crazy. You know, how do I do this? So and like I said, you have to research the sites, of course, because there are some crazies out there. But there are some people out there just like a me, or a Rachel or a James, that they're cautious about what they do and how they date, and what they want to see. So I would not say it's a no for me. The experience for me was, okay, I did it, and I don't know if I would do it again, but I'm not objective to it. I don't think there's anything wrong with if someone decided to do it.
Now, that was an interesting perspective, and I want to hear, James, have you ever gone on, had a first date completely online, and did you meet somebody and then have her girlfriends following you guys, or anything like that?
I've never been on any dating site whatsoever, but I have gotten a DM, I guess you can call it, and I responded. And that was my last date, actually. Like, the last time I went out with someone, it was from social media.
Wow.
But like, I feel like it was cool because a lot of people already knew of this person, and people who I was close to and had personal relationships with, they knew of this particular young lady. So it really wasn't like too much of an issue. But I don't think she had anybody following her or anything.
All right. Well, you never
I
know.
hope not.
All right.
I hope not.
All right.
So next we want to bring into our panel, we have Reverend Leon Morehead. He's also a philanthropist, father of two. He is married, and he also, he's a preacher, an educator, and he counsels singles as well as married couples within ministry. He's been married for over 18 years, well, just coming up on 18 years. So we're happy to have him to chime in. And we just want to ask, I guess, you can ask the question that, you know, like, what does he, or what do you, I can just ask the questions. What do you have to say about the way things are going in the way of counseling, as you're counseling people that are looking to be married in this season, or people that are in just busted relationships that they were trying to get married and it just was not working out? Just tell us what that experience looks like today.
Well, a big thing now in counseling, especially with singles or those that are married or anything, is you have to have a realistic version of relationship versus a reality version of relationship. The difference of being a reality version of relationship is what people see on TV and think, oh, this is what's going to happen. But realistically, it takes a lot of work to have a relationship. It takes a lot of work to find someone that will love you like Christ loved the church. And that's quite difficult to get people to understand, that you want somebody that's going to listen to you, not always look at you. There's a big difference between, unfortunately now, a lot of people are attracted by what they look at, and they never get to the point to where they'll listen to somebody, because they're consistently wanting to look at versus the listen. And the listen is what will actually open your heart up to what the person wants. The look at will just get the exterior satisfied. The listen is what you need to happen. But we're at a point where we have a lot of people that come from the church and from outside of the church that are struggling with some of the basic tenements that Big Mom and them may have taught you, like you look good no matter what. You know, they're dealing with self-esteem issues. They're dealing with not feeling like they're good enough. They're feeling like they don't make enough money, that you know, they can't be a good enough husband or a good enough wife. And a lot of that is based off what people are seeing on reality shows that is telling us in the media that, hey, this is what real life is, when really realistically, I heard it the other day, and I hear it all the time. You can only go so long before you're going to have to take off that shirt and everybody going to see everything. So what's happening is sometimes we cover up things, and we get so good at covering up that even if we get bigger, we find something bigger to cover us up. We go from wearing t-shirt and tank tops when you were a young strapping 20-year-old to then you put on long sleeve shirts in your mid 20s. Then you started wearing hoodies in your 30s. Then when you got to your 40s, you start getting fur coats because that was the pretty thing to cover you up. But you still, at the end of the day, have to uncover all of those things. And when you uncover all those things, that's what the person that you're supposed to be able to look in the mirror and say, I love me. And then the person that's you're connecting with saying, I love that person as well. We don't want to be in love with the fur coat. We don't want to be in love with the hoodie. We want to be in love with what's under all of that, the interior. And believe it or not, God doesn't make any junk. You know, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. And you know, if God created this wonderful thing of the heavens and the earth, then we have to get to the point where we understand we are one of God's creations and we're pretty good. But sometimes we do need some fine tuning.
Absolutely.
And the fine tuning comes because sometimes we pick somebody that God didn't want us to have in the beginning.
True. And then we have to live with our choices at that particular point, or you know, really work hard to make that choice work.
Elder Morehead, he said something really good, which was very important, and talked about, you know, what people's expectations are in the church and dating and all that. And we have a clip that we want to play, and we want you guys to look at it. And we're going to talk about it. There's this Christian influencer, Ezekiel and Zamu, that put a panel about Christian dating, and both men and women had different expectations and different realities about dating. Let's take a look at it, and then we'll come back and talk about it.
Are Christian guys approaching women in the church these days?
Because it's number two, you know. Because sometimes I feel like Christian women are like play more games than the women in the world.
Really? Like what? Give us an example. Wow.
Go ahead. No, take your time, brother. Take your time.
Like the whole, like, you know, maybe the Holy Spirit is just not being aligned this way, so, you know, maybe I should just focus on God. After you done gave the young brother game like for 5 months, you know, and that is not being talked about. Like, it's just a lot of games going on, and then we define it as like, hey, but I feel like Christian women play more games than worldly women.
I have to say, speak for my Christian women, and I do not agree. I think a lot of people are mad because the Holy Spirit tells us that's just not for us. Don't be mad at us, be mad at the Holy Spirit.
I think, okay, this is number one speaking. Well, let's just start by saying not all, but many. Okay,
a lot.
So not all Christian women, but many
95%.
I think the culture of the institutionalized church has created a sense of entitlement, where a lot of times the standards by which a lot of our sisters are trying to choose men, you know, it may be realistic to some, but to some it may not be. And I think that a lot of times they're straddling the fence. Like, for instance, they're looking for, you know, a man, like my brother number 3 said, speaking to him, is like, you know, they want a man who explicitly with his lifestyle shows that he loves God, but then in other scenarios wants him to represent something that would not necessarily be a representation of God. So basically having your Tupac and Creflo Dollar in the same body, or you got
Creflo Pop,
you know. So
wow. So what do you guys think about that clip? Like, you know, I got a lot of stuff I would like to say about what she said and what he said. Right. So what do you guys think?
Well, me personally, I think that the guy that, you know, said that with regards to him feeling that way about individual or women in particular, I think that he was generalizing his experience on everybody, all the other Christian women, because that's not necessarily a true statement that I would agree with. I think that, if a young lady and a young man have been dating for some time, quick if I could be, and she decides that, you're not the one. Well, that's what dating is. Dating is the opportunity for you to collect information to make a decision. And you got to be adult enough and mature enough to say, okay, if this doesn't work, we're walking away from each other. And if I decide to say no, you should be okay with that. So.
Anybody else?
At first, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Oh, at first I didn't really agree with them, but the more I watch it, I kind of see and I kind of agree with them a little bit more. Like there are games being played in church, outside the church. I really don't know. I kind of agree with what he's saying a little bit now. I don't know what happened, but I do.
Change your heart. Change your heart. You think the ladies is playing games in the church?
Yes.
All my coming up, I was like the guys is playing games. The guys is running games, but ladies is coming in on running some games now too. So anybody else want to chime in on that? We got a few clips tonight, so anybody else want to chime in on that? And of course,
well, my thought, one more. If I could do one more, for me, I'm going back to that point. Guys, for me, in my opinion, sometimes if we're talking about Christianity, for me, sometimes we have learned the behavior of if I pick her, she should be okay with me picking her and she should choose me back. That is not accurate information. And they have been misled somewhere in my thought, somewhere in their life. Because I have a choice to choose you back. And I'm not choosing you back, sir. So I think that the maturity comes along again, like I said, if you're gonna go and pursue a woman, because that's what we've been taught to do is in our faith, is that men pursue women. But you need to understand, though, the reality of it is that although you're pursuing me and I agree to date you and see where this thing goes, I also have a decision that I can make. It's not solely based on you choosing me and saying, oh, this is it. Because at the end of the day, what if you don't choose me?
Right. Very good.
You know what I'm saying? So I get a choice, too, to choose back. And I think that, for me, my experience has been guys have run into their ego when the female has said, I don't choose you back. Whoa. And then they become so hurt, I guess, by that turn down until now we get statements and videos such as this.
Okay. All right.
What do you think, Rachel?
I agree with James, sort of. My perspective, from a woman's point of view, I can see both sides. However, I'm around a lot of women, all kinds of women, and men. And so, do men play games? Absolutely. But do women, Christian women, play games? Absolutely. And so, and I'm saying that, as a woman. And so we as women can play games because I think we get trapped in what it is that we really want. And I think one of the clips said, and I can't remember the example, but basically, one day we want J Moss and one day we want Tupac. So I think there is some conflict, it's conflicting. And so I think we do get confused. And I think there is some games because one day we want we want to be at home. We want you reading the Bible. But then, if somebody say something to us, we want you to turn up. So it's kind of like, what is it that you really want? What are you really praying for? And so, and sometimes you can't have both. So I kind of agree to a certain extent with the guys on this one.
All right.
But Morehead, when you're talking to people that are in those issues, saying, my wife, we talked about last time. Sometimes guys will say, "Hey, we want a woman out in the streets."
Well, we want a lady in the streets, and what in the sheets.
And the other way around, and a woman can say they want the Creflo Tupac. So is this a reality that, especially in church, where there are a lot more women than men, that you are dealing with when you're talking to people? How do you address that?
Well, really, everybody wants the fairy tale, but we have to get to the point where we understand you're going to get what the Lord gives you, and you'll be happy with what the Lord gives you, but not what you go get yourself. Never be happy with you going to get it yourself, but you'll also always be happy with something that the Lord gives you, because there'll be some minor anthills to climb, but you'll never have to climb Mount Everest with what the Lord gives you.
So does a single woman have to wait for a man in the church to pursue them?
Traditionally, we say yes, but let's be honest, we threw tradition out 40, 50 years ago. June Cleaver is not walking through that door no time soon. So we've changed society and our mindset to the point to where we really have to understand that sometimes the young lady is going to come to the young man first, and vice versa. You know, and there are some things that we have to accept. But I believe Miss Richardson said it best when she said ego. Ego is a huge part of every relationship, because you got to learn how to squash your ego sometime and let him be the man. And sometimes you got to squash your ego and let her be the woman, and both of y'all come together at the end and be on the same page.
Yeah, absolutely. I will agree, and I'm just chiming in here. Traditionally, I actually introduced myself to my husband before he ever introduced himself to me. I went up on a dare and I introduced myself to my husband. Now, the pursuit from that, after that, he pursued me. I wasn't calling, knocking on his door saying, hey, what's up? Let's go ride somewhere all the time. I was not that girl. But I did go up to introduce myself, and I sat down at our table. Of course, we were in college, though. I sat down at the cafeteria table with my husband, and I was like, hi, my name is Gene. What's your name? Even though I already knew his name. So it was all good. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah, I did do that, and that is, you know, that's a reality. And that's something that people can, you know, I think it's okay.
We have to be honest. Fellas, women play chess, we play checkers.
Very true. They actually addressed that. Let's take a look at another part of this clip and look and see what they said about that.
And to add to that, this number two, like a lot of Christian women are confused. I feel like, you know, like you applying certain things like, oh, he must be 6'8", you know, like he must make this amount of money, and you know he must speak in tongue, you know, like he must do this, he must do that. But how much money are you making? You know, like what do you do? You know, like how tall are you? You feel me? Like, you know, other things, like if we talking physical, okay, you want him to be tall. All right, I want you to be back there. I'm from Birmingham. Back there means like, do you have a dude? Do you have a butt? You know, like how does that look like if we take that and we apply the same pressure towards you? So I feel like maybe Christian women are just confused as to what they want. So why even approach that?
But let me jump in. This is number one. My thing is, a lot of the Christian sisters that I know are saved, or you know, working toward a particular lifestyle. They're not even dating. They're not even checking for men that are in the faith like that. They're dating everybody who's living other ways. So it's almost like they're not even really checking for, you know, church guys.
But is it that they're not checking for you, or you're not approaching them, and so it looks like they're not checking for you? Say that, number two. Say that. Because he that finds a wife, if I'm not mistaken. So I don't think they would approach you.
So while we were watching that, I was looking at you guys' reactions.
That's crazy.
Rachel, Liz, first of all, what do you guys think of number two's comments?
Yeah. What's up with him?
He made a comment about, you know, us being women in the church being very particular about height and weight and class. I think that's somewhat true, not just in the church, but just period. We do, or we can be picky when it comes to wanting a man, wanting a man in a certain income bracket, or we want a man with a certain physique. However, and I think I talked about this earlier, where not being so picky, because I have my expectations. Don't get me wrong, I have my expectations. However, I think you have to be able to not lower but change some of those expectations, because you will not be able to get that perfect man. Do I want a man 6'4"? Yeah, because the taller the better for me, right? But if I get somebody 6 foot, I'm okay, right? So, do I want him to be in a certain income bracket? Yes. However, if he's not, that's okay too. Am I in the business of taking care of a man? No. So, but if you just get above that part, I think we can work with all the other things. I think it's the compromising and the knowing the things that you can get past, some of the hurdles you can get past. Because some women are, I think Leon mentioned reality and realistically or something like that. But we are so fixated on what is on TV and what a man should be, and he should have a Rollie with 100,000 diamonds and all of in these fancy cars. But even if you get that, is he living with his sister? Is he living with 4 guys? Is he living with mom? So it can get very, that fur coat Leon mentioned, it can get very shiny, it can get very fuzzy. And so now it has clogged your thinking. It has, and so you get confused on what it is you really want and what you really need. You understand? And so I want a man that not only love me and my kids. It's a lot of things I want him to be understanding. I want him to be a great communicator, because I'm not saying I'm the best, but I think I'm a great communicator. And so that's one of the things that's important to me. You understand? You have to be funny. Like, that's important. So what's number one to certain people, my number one may not be your number one, because the number one thing or two thing, you have to be funny, or I don't want to be bothered. You have to make me laugh.
Out there, everybody. She just put her resume out there. So if there's any guys out there watching, you already know if you meet the criteria. She's willing to take.
I laugh all day long, and if you can't make me laugh, I don't want to be bothered.
Yes.
So you're saying you can't be 5'8" or 5'9"? You got to be that 6 foot, because I noticed you did 6 foot to 6 foot.
Even though she's only 5 feet.
Listen, James, you know what? I'm gonna answer that, James, and I'm gonna be honest. I met a guy, and he was about 5'8"ish, and I liked him. So the answer to that, I compromised.
All right.
Well, I would say the comment with regards to the picky, I was on the fence about that, in that I felt what he was saying, but I also want to bring this point home. Although women can be picky, men are picky too. They're picky too. But what I will say is maturity comes in play. It should come in play, I should say, when we are being very picky. But, for me, if I were to look at it, I really do have some friends who are, to me, in my mind, too picky. And when I say too picky is, you're too picky and you're not bringing anything to the table. And I heard that brother's point to that. You can be picky if you bringing something else to the table, and this brother got something else to the table. Because at the end of the day, for me, in 2020, if we going back to that question, in 2020, we're not living in that kind of a day anymore where brothers got it like that for real. Now, if you're talking about career-wise, you're talking about salary, it's statistically known that most oftentimes women are making more than men in the world. And that day of the man being the breadwinner and bringing all the money home, that day is not this day. I mean, you can find them, but you know, right now, you know, that's few and far in between. So I heard the brother's point when he talked about you too picky and what are you bringing to the table. That is a good question. Now for a person like a careered woman, a Rachel or a Liz, I'm throwing this out there, Rachel.
She put her resume out there, guys.
Career
What's up, Liz's resume? Let's go.
Coins, funny, coins and funny.
Who are funny and bringing things to the table. We have a right to be picky. I mean, I'm not saying we're too picky. I get you, Rachel, and I agree with you. We're in a different stage of being what our likes and dislikes are. And I just feel like I didn't want the brother to disregard the fact that the woman was picky, because in my thought would be, if you do that, then that means you're disregarding her opinion and you're disregarding her feelings on things. And that's a bad place for me, in my opinion, to start dating an individual when you're just going to disregard me for being picky. I think that there is a conversation of maturity that needs to be had to develop to say, you know, well, what things are you, you know, like or you don't like. But I do feel his point to the comment. I do feel his point about there could be women and men who are too picky, but you ain't bringing too much to the table. You got all these expectations.
So sometimes can picky be misconstrued as having standards?
I do.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, so some people, you know, having standards, James. Even what about you with the ladies? I'm sure you have standards. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
'Cause I'm sure there's a whole lot of girls that could slide into your DMs and would be trying to step to you.
I feel, but I think it's important that you realize and understand not only what you want, but like what's going to be best for you. So it's like a lot of the young ladies that I've talked to and that I know in the past, they think more so short term. They don't really think long term. But I think that's a primary issue. And I think especially within the church, if you talk to somebody, you can't just talk to somebody once and then be like, oh, okay, that didn't work. Okay, I'll talk to somebody else. Now it's like, oh no, you know he's that type of guy. Don't do that. Don't talk to him. And I think that's a negative perception for a lot of guys within the church. It's messed up.
Yeah. Morehead, you want to say something?
Yeah. What I tell almost every person that asks me a question about finding a mate, things like that, I say, whatever you had in your mind as what type you want, throw it out. Because I had a certain type. And I realized that my type wasn't who God wanted me to be happy with. Ended up being polar opposite. My wife is almost 6 inches shorter than any woman I ever dated before. She's built completely different. She had to be at least my shade or lighter before. Now my wife is, let's say, Hershey Kisses. So it was completely different. You know, I felt like I had to have a certain type, and it changed everything. So I tell everybody that sometimes God is going to break your rules so that way you can be blessed. And if you really look at some things biblically, we serve a God who breaks all types of rules all the time. And so why wouldn't he break what your rules are to bless you, especially with the relationship, you know? And it's fine to have standards. I'm not saying you just say, hey, all right, come on, give me everybody that's homeless. I want to date them and get them a home. Right. No, but you have to get to a point where you're not letting some of your standards block your blessings.
Absolutely.
You know, don't keep yourself open. Because God wants to open the windows of heaven, not the doors of heaven. It's always more windows than doors.
That's true. That's true.
Very
that's
good.
That's powerful. Yeah,
so
absolutely.
Now I want to put you guys just on blast because James says something important that I caught, and I want to put you because you guys are at different stages in life. As a millennial, James, are you dating for the short term or for the long term? and
long term.
for Liz and for so
everybody I think here, I think is dating for the long term.
Is that and that? So
I'm not dating at all.
right,
well, no, you're not.
Awesome,
You dating that Hershey Kiss. You dating that Hershey Kiss over there.
But because I want to lead into another question after that. And the other part was is that are you going to date, or do you just limit yourself to somebody in the church?
Yeah, I'll go first. I really feel like dating should be a short-term thing, but then courting, of course, should be long-term. And I know there's a difference between dating and courting, which a lot of people don't really talk about or really understand. But
so what is it? Why don't you tell us? Tell us what the difference is.
Oh, dating is like, yeah, you might just be talking to somebody, maybe short-term. You never know. But it's leading up to courting, where it's like, okay, this potential person I can marry. That's just what I feel. I don't know if everyone has like a different idea of it or whatever, but that's just me. I feel like courting leads to marriage, but dating can lead to, like, dating kind of stops there.
Gotcha.
That's just, like I said, that's just me.
That's good.
But yeah.
Rachel, I like you mentioned something before. Be like, you know what, my time and my experience dating, I want to date, but then, I might not want you to be all snuggly with me right away or whatever, so how does that go? What's the dating and courting? When does that change? How does it cross over for you?
Well, can I give you all a quick story?
Sure.
I met a guy. Let me give you a story. So I met a guy, and this guy was saved, and he had professed to be saved, sanctified, and full of the Holy Ghost. So we went to a movie. He asked if he wanted to take me to it. He asked if he could take me to a movie, and I said yes. So we went to the drive-in. This was last year. We went to the drive-in, and so he picked me up. So from the ride from my house, and he was a gentleman. He came to the door. He opened the door, like all the good stuff, right? So on the way to the drive-in, he talked about the Bible, and so hey, and I say this all the time. I love God with all of my heart, but the ride to the theater, I don't. We don't necessarily have to talk about the Bible, because I don't think it was coming genuinely. I think he was doing it thinking he was impressing me, right? Mm-hmm. And so, but in that, on the way to the drive-in, we're passing all sorts of places in Detroit, right? So every place in Detroit, for the most part, the clubs, so he'll be talking about God, and he'll be like, oh, that was such and such, and then he'll get back to God. He was like, oh, I used to, and I'm like, now, wait a minute. Okay, now what we going to talk about? So fast forward, we get to the drive-in, we're watching the movie, and a whole total different hymn came out, right? So on the way there, you were saved, sanctified, and full of the Holy Ghost. But once we got to the movies, in the dark, he was a total different person. And so, and I think what bothered me the most is because the fur coat that you wore to the theater, that's what they say, your representative, you bring your representative. Once we got there,
the real you took that coat off, or at least you was trying to take that coat off. Take your coat off. Somebody's coat was trying to come off.
So with that being said, it was just reservation. It just made me feel like, okay, not in and out of the church, here come the fakeness. You understand what I'm saying? And so it bothered me so much so that I didn't want to talk to him ever again, because and I don't want to get into the conversations we had in the conversation on the way home. I don't want to get into all of that, but it just made me look at him, one, a little different, and then two, it just I'm like, okay, I'm not gonna go on a date for 4 more months. And so because that date had turned me off so much so that it kind of scared me, because you think you're getting one thing, and I'm like, still in 2020, men of your age, this is what I'm thinking to myself, we still playing games. And so, and this man was maybe late 50s, mid 50s,
Wow.
maybe mid 50s. And so I couldn't believe that we were still doing this in 2020. So I'm looking for long-term. Eventually, I said I would never get married again, but I'm not saying, never say never, but I'm not in a rush to get married again, because I think the men that I've encountered, and I've met a few good ones, but the majority is cray. They're pretty cray.
So that being said, and I'm glad you talked about that, because this is we're winding down, but this is kind of getting to the meat of the matter of what we wanted to talk about tonight. And I know that you read the book. I know that Elizabeth has read the book, and I'm sure most of us has heard of the book, The Saved, Single, and Having Sex. So to get right into the meat of the matter, let's talk about that. Is that something that is, at different stages? Is that still a reality? I know that when I was, before I was married, that was something that, and the way that they taught me, they were like, you know what, you are really, in order to keep yourself, you are trying to keep yourself from doing something as natural as like just going to the bathroom, or as natural as eating, and you're trying to keep yourself from doing something natural, but you cannot master that part of yourself unless you master your flesh. You cannot fast and not eat unless you discipline and crucify and master your flesh. You cannot, do all of these other things in your flesh unless you master your flesh, and you cannot be successful in living celibately while you are waiting to get married unless you master your flesh. Well, let's talk about that, because in 2020, is that still important? Because, a lot of different things go right now, in 2020, there's stuff that didn't go back in the day. So does that go? Is it okay to kind of test things out, taking the bike for a ride before you go down the street, before you buy it?
I think, and I'm just gonna, and I'll let Liz and James talk, but I'm gonna just say this real quick, and then I'll come back later. I think the older you get, and definitely when we're talking about seasoned women or men, I think we feel like times are ticking, right? Mm-hmm. And so we rush into this. Do I think there are certain women and men to say, hey, sex is off, all these things are off until we get married? Do I think that still exists? Yes, I do. But I think the majority of the people that I know, I can just only speak for the people I know. Do I think that that's realistic? Absolutely not. Because of the conversations I hear and the conversations I have, because I think a lot of women, especially over 40, they feel like that time clock, and especially we're talking women late 30s who don't have children and want children. And so we got a lot of things planned that's a part of this game, I guess, or this this thing of life, and we're rushing. And this goes back to, I think, what someone said earlier. We're wanting to pick someone for ourselves because God is taking too long, right? He's taking too long. So I'm gonna make a choice because I want to have sex, I want kids, I want all of that. So I'm gonna find me a man, and I'm gonna do it now. And so I think that's the issue with a lot of women and men, because they don't want to wait, and I think a lot of it's because of age.
But can I piggyback off of what she's saying? We also have to understand that when that book was first written, society was not as hypersexual as it is now. We live in a hypersexual society. You think about it, when that book was written, you still couldn't cuss too much on TV. And now, everything is said on TV. They showing everything on television. Kids are we used to talk about babies having babies. Now you got babies having babies and don't nobody care because it's normal. We've normalized it. So the battle is on for your flesh, and that's quite difficult for you to say, I'm going to be saved and single. And I'm not saying it's everybody, but what I've encountered is many are struggling right now with not just being saved, number one, because they feel as though it's an abnormal amount of pressure to be saved in this type of society, you know, but then you're asking them to forego what everybody thinks is normal and everybody thinks is acceptable. I still tell them, and they all will look at me all day like, yeah, it don't count because you married and you can do this, you could do that. But I always try to tell people, be careful of what you're laying, who you're laying with, because you don't know what you're gonna leave with.
Absolutely.
And that's not just a disease or anything physical. It's also some of those spiritual things, some of those that, and then that baggage that you go home with. Some of the people that I've had to talk to, they have more baggage than you could ever imagine, and it's just from having premarital sex. And you know, they'll say, why did the Lord leave me? Why am I doing this? Why am I doing that? Well, the Lord didn't leave you. You know, sometimes you've rushed his decisions. Sometimes we say, oh, I'm gonna marry this person, and you know good and well that ain't the one you was gonna marry, but yet and still you went to try to take the bike for a ride, and now you done got a baby, and now you kind of stuck with the baggage where you be like, I couldn't stand him or her from the beginning, no way.
Yeah.
Well, if I can chime in there, I heard something that Rachel and Elder Leon was saying that I want to kind of state here. For me,
Liz,
I don't have any children, and I've never been married. And my experience for celibacy and living pure before God is different, because as a woman in her 40s, I have been successful. Has it been a struggle? Absolutely, because it's not an evil thing to desire to have sex, because it's natural. That's what God created us to be. But have I been successful? Have I been able to maintain my status as a woman living for God? Yes, because I believe it goes back to the conversation that Jean started with, was you have to be in a place in your mind of discipline, first of all, and it's a heart thing. It's a heart thing. The most important thing to me above any man, any relationship, is my relationship with God. And so for me, answering that question, going back to it, yes, it's long term for me, because I want a husband who loves God. And if he loves God, then he's going to wait for me, and I'm going to wait for him. I think what gets us tripped up sometimes is our boundaries that we cross sometimes in relationships. When we go from, I think James talked about the stages of dating. He was saying going from dating to courtship to then possibly going into marriage. I think that in between those stages, we become, sometimes we can become a little bit confused, and sometimes we can obscure those boundaries if you're not careful. And so setting boundaries for me is important, because you have to know who you are as a person and what those triggers are that could send you somewhere. So if it's really important for you to maintain your purity and your commitment to God in that way, I really believe even through the struggles that you will be able to. You just have to learn a self-discipline. You have to learn a way that where you know yourself, and those things that those triggers that you have to know how to get away from those triggers. And sometimes, explaining that to someone is not always something that you're going to explain, right away. But what I will say is that if it's important to you, you can do it. It can happen. I'm a living witness that it can happen. It is not, even in the times, I believe it goes back, and this is my last point. even with the author, Miss Adams, writing this book, that was her testimony. When I looked at that book, no matter what time frame it was, from this day to that day, that still was her testimony. And a lot of the things that she said in her book are relevant because that's her testimony. Her testimony is not going to change. You know, even with the time, her testimony is her testimony. But she has some very valid points in there. Even with the over sexualized society that we live in, that's the woman's testimony. And what I can say to her or say to it is a journey that one must take, but yet one must take it in a mature way. If you have a desire and a commitment in your heart to say, I want to be pure before I, get my husband or go with my husband. I want to maintain that pureness or that purity in sexuality. You can do that. And I'm not saying it's easy. I'm not saying that whatsoever. There is a struggle, but it doesn't have to be a daily struggle. It doesn't have to be an overwhelming thought. It doesn't have to be a failure. It doesn't have to be a thought in your mind that somebody's lying. It can be an actual thought that they're actually succeeding. And that's my point to that.
That's wonderful. James, what do you have to say as a young man?
I think for me, temptation is real, but so is God.
Yes.
A lot of people don't understand that it's like we're going to experience and go through a lot of things, but like, who are you trying to please? Like, are you trying to please yourself or are you trying to please God? So for me personally, it's like, I think it's better if we just like completely separate or isolate ourselves so we don't get ourselves caught up. And a lot of people joke and play it like, oh, it's just whatever, or it's just this or just that. But when you're genuinely trying to live your life right, hey, you just can't do certain things. You have to avoid certain things. And it helps you out, I think, more than anything else. As well, because it shows you how strong you can be. Just trying to avoid that temptation that you may face, whether it's sex or anything in relation to it.
That's good. That's
Absolutely.
Good. This is such a hot topic, and we're just scratching the surface. But we definitely have appreciated this outstanding panel tonight.
Yes.
You guys have given us such wisdom, and we definitely want to invite you back, and we want to continue the topic of dating and relationships. We appreciate each and every one of you guys. So we will go ahead and end our topic tonight. And,
and also we want to make sure that you guys that you're typing questions. Some of our panelists will also be able to help answer some of those questions. Those of you that are typing questions on the screen, thank you so much for the likes and the hearts. Continue to do that. Also share this episode with those that you feel that need it. Again, we just scratched the surface, but of course, what we believe, we can't sign off with saying what we believe. And what we believe is that you can be kept. God can keep you. God can preserve you no matter where you are in your stages of dating or your singleness. Or if you somewhere out there married and you looking to be outside of your marriage, or you tempted to be outside of your marriage, there used to be a saying that God will keep you if you want to be kept. So you just gotta, really focus on that discipline, even in this world and in this time. It's like not eating a piece of cake. You know what I'm saying? If you're trying to diet, if you're trying to, it takes discipline and crucifying this flesh. Who's going to be the boss? Is your sexual desire going to be the boss, or are you going to be the boss? Is your desire to do things that are detriment to your body and to your feelings, is that going to be the leading force in your life? Or are you going to let God lead your life? Because if you do that, if you've had so much experience with so many others, when you do get with the person that God wants you to be with, it can lack something in the beginning. It'll take some restoration for you to get to where you need to be. So that's what we believe, that you can be kept and you don't have to be led by your own flesh. Your flesh can be subject to you.
Right. Thank you so much to our panel, and we appreciate you guys tuning in. We're going to cut it off for now, but we're going to come back and hit this topic again real soon. We appreciate each and every one of you. We have all the information of everybody's tags on Instagram and Facebook below.
So
Well,
you
once
can
again-
so you can be in James's DM.
All right. Or you can tell. You can tell or if you got a funny joke, Rachel will reply back.
Absolutely. If your resume is right, Elizabeth will. Or if you need counseling, either we can take care of you or Reverend Leon will
Reverend Leon.
But we appreciate you guys. Thank you so much. And this has been Love in 60 Seconds. Well, guys, we have to wrap it up this evening. We really hope that you've enjoyed our conversation.
Yes, this conversation has been amazing, and we want you to tune in again next time so that we can discuss more of these amazing topics and these topics of interest. Then don't forget to DM us, contact us, reach out to us, and we will definitely respond back.
This has been Love in 60 Seconds. Don't forget to follow us on Facebook and Instagram.
All right, good night, everybody.
60.